Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is the MindShare podcast, and this is season 6. This show is sponsored by Kits Keep In Touch Systems, a 2-time international award-winning marketing suite for sales professionals, as well as REM Real Estate Magazine, Canada's premier monthly magazine for real estate professionals, and OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, Canada's largest provincial real estate association. Speaking of OREA, did you get your tickets for Reality 24 yet? This 2-day event will bring the country's top realtors to the nation's capital, where all decisions that affect homeownership in Canada are made. Plus, the one and only Basketball Hall of Famer Magic Johnson, as well as the founder of FUBU's Damon John, will also be there. To learn more about all of the incredible speakers we have at Reality 24, the expansive trade show, the networking and after-hours events, and much more, visit www.realityconference.ca. Be sure to get your tickets today so you can join us at Reality 24, where every session, panel, and keynote is designed to give you a new perspective on the future of real estate. Of course, you can learn more about all of our sponsors by visiting my site, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, be sure to download your free copy of our MindShare 101 goal-setting worksheet, as well as learn more about our one-to-one coaching and keynote speaking. Today's episode is number 270. He is the CEO of our Ontario Real Estate Association, Canada's largest provincial real estate industry association, representing 103,000 realtors. With a passion and voice for championing the dream of homeownership, he came to OREA following a distinguished 21-year career in politics, including 5 years as leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario. Under his leadership, the association has attracted some of the most influential people to speak at their conferences, has had historic wins in advocacy, including the passage of the Trust in Real Estate Services Act, and has demonstrated strong thought leadership throughout the real estate industry. As part of his work at OREA, he was named one of the most powerful people in North American residential real estate by Swanepoel Power 200 for the last 5 years. And in 2021, he was also named to the Government of Ontario's new Housing Affordability Task Force, which will explore measures to address housing affordability and job creation. Joining me on this episode of the MindShare podcast is OREA CEO, Mr. Tim Hudak. Tim, welcome back to the MindShare podcast.
David, it's great to be back on the MindShare podcast. And episode 270, right? That's my lucky number. So
come on.
That's what I wore on my basketball jersey, my football jersey. It's my age sometimes, it feels. It's pretty on MindShare. And thank you. Thank you for your leadership in the real estate profession and fans of real estate. And you mentioned Reality Conference. I know we'll talk about that today. But we're thrilled to have David Greenspan on the MindShare, also one of our star speakers at Reality.
I am super excited to be there with you guys. It is an absolute honor to be able to play the role that we will be playing at that event. It's one that we've been to a number of times over now that it's been hosted, and it truly is the biggest and best real estate event we've got in the entire country. So kudos to you and your team for putting together such an amazing one. I can't wait, but we'll get into the details of that a little bit later in the show today.
You bet, no problem.
We opened up with a really jarring title. Okay, home ownership is the dream over. And just to set the stage, we know that home ownership is becoming more and more difficult in today's economic landscape. Gone are the days where the middle class has the opportunity to upgrade their homes without suffering major financial burden. New home buyers are having to dig really deep into their own pockets and overextend themselves with borrowing, if not from institutions, then maybe from family or not at all. We see the smallest of properties in major cities going for over $1 million. The average income needed to purchase an average home in Canada in our major urban centers is in the neighborhood of $140,000 a year. Interest rates are up. Inflation is up. The overall cost of living is next to unaffordable. And on top of it all, Canada as a nation brought in over 500,000 new immigrants in 2023, with almost 40% of them landing in Ontario, all while we fully know that we are in the midst of a housing crisis across the country. So we know that all Canadians are certainly feeling the impacts of this in some way. And so the question remains, is the dream of home ownership in Canada over, or how long do we feel this moment is really going to last.
Yeah, well, great setup there, David. You put a lot of facts on the table. So let me say one thing off the top. One of the great joys I have in my life, in my career, is every day when my feet hit the floor, going to work for the people that are helping Canadians achieve that dream of home ownership, that are out there these days in a tougher market than we saw a couple of years ago, busting their butts to try to get the keys in the hands of hardworking Canadians who want to be homeowners. Just love that part of the job. Here's the good news too. The dream of home ownership is as live and as strong as ever. In fact, it is stronger. OREA regularly serves consumer sentiments, and viewers can check it out at OREA.com. But last year we surveyed people who don't own a home and asked how many do, and it actually gone up, David, from previous years, up to 78% of people who currently do not own, who still have that dream of home ownership. And why? Well, number one, as you talk about in MindShare, it's the biggest investment you make of your life, but also a proven investment over time to get your return, to help bank for retirement. It is emotional value. It's where we raise our family. It's where we're most safe and secure and comfortable. It's a place of our fondest memories. And I know when I first bought my home in 2002, it changed me as a man. I cared more about my neighbors. I got involved in the community. I cared about what my home looked like and reinvested in it. That great piece of the Canadian fabric and identity is alive and fighting, and the realtors in Ontario are helping make that dream come true despite a more challenging market.
I would double down on that and say that we've got some fantastic people, and I like you, wake up in the morning excited to be in this profession, excited to be amongst such an amazing industry of people who truly care. And look, I'll tell you, I play a lot online. We see what's going on. We hear from the masses around what their thoughts are and their feedback around their impressions and perception of the industry. And the reality is, look, anywhere you go, anything you'd venture into, there's always going to be something there where you say, hey, there could possibly be a change. But I would echo that with you in a big way, that, realtors are battling hard to help everybody here in this country achieve that. So definitely with you there. Now, in a recent report, OREA calls for bold action to build more homes. And within it, we see that the Ontario government has set what they call an ambitious goal to add 1.5 million homes to the province's housing stock by 2031, breaking down to approximately 214,000 homes per year over the next 7 years. With the influx in immigration, which we saw is more than double that number year over year the past 2 years, do we feel that $1.5 million or 1.5 million homes is enough over the next 7 years? What's our position as an industry here in Ontario?
Got to hit that target. And I remain optimistic. Let me tell you why. We were off to a good start. We stalled, but I'm confident we can keep going if governments show the courage to use the toolbox they created for themselves. Let me take a step back for a second. I talked about how the dream is alive and kicking and actually getting stronger. Here's the risk, David, from MindShare viewers. The risk is people can move elsewhere. So we also surveyed Ontarians 45 and under, and we found that a significant number, I believe it was 56%, were doing searches, but in other provinces or to the States. And that is our next generation of job creators. It's our entrepreneurs, it's our workers who are going to help provide healthcare and education and good roads. So while the dream is strong, people can realize it elsewhere. And that's the threat for Ontario's economic future and our sense of security. So what do you do about it? Well, OREA really did its homework. We looked around at the best ideas, not only in North America, but in similar countries from the UK to Australia and around the world. We brought them forward to the province of Ontario and said, look, you want to keep that young talent here in Canada. You want to fulfill the dreams of Canadians to have a place to call home. Here's what you need to do. And I had the great honor of sitting on a housing affordability task force. Premier Ford put me on that list. We put together a plan in 2002, just 2 years ago, actually. We put it out there in February 2022. We laid out 56 recommendations. It reads easily. It's not some big, massive thing you put on a shelf and gathers dust. The government's actually doing it. So, David, if we actually implement those plans, we can hit that 1.5 million homes in 10 years.
And let's talk about some of those, because I know I went through that, and I do want to share that it is an easy read. There's a lot of very logical stuff there. There's certain things though, and I'm going to bring some of those up today that maybe we could further clarify. I know that OREA put forward 10 specific action items to fix the crisis and bring affordability home. Looking at some of these further, and here's the first one I look at. As far as I see it, my bills at home, I'm paying the municipality for water and wastewater services. And in the report, one of our major action items includes allowing water and wastewater services to be provided through municipal service corporations. Can you help us clarify the difference and explain further how this particular action item is going to help us with affordability?
Yeah, you bet. So let me set the stage here. 2 weeks ago, I went back to Queen's Park, where I used to be. You were kind of mentored 21 years, including leader of the official opposition. And I did a press conference. So the government's made a lot of progress. In 2021, we had the most homes built in over 30 years. Fantastic. 22, second most. Head in the right direction. 23, things slow down. We can talk about that when interest rates went up. So I said, here's what is in that report we still need to get done. Now, I will commend the Ford government. Of the 56 recommendations, David, 76% are either already done or underway. So I focused on what needs more of a push. So to your question, top of my list, turning water and wastewater, or water and sewer, into a utility, a municipal services corporation. So what does that mean? Well, it's the way we finance hydro. It's the way we finance natural gas. So you pay for it over usage over time, kind of like paying down a mortgage, right? And that way we build hydro lines, we build natural gas connections. So why not water and sewer? Today in Ontario, you have to pay water and wastewater upfront. On a typical home, maybe in York region of Durham, $50,000 on the top. That's one of the highest development charges that the new homeowner has to pay. But David, instead, if we paid that over time, 30, 40 years on a user pay basis, that will help bring down the cost for first-time home buyers.
Okay, interesting. So that's where, in reading it, there was a little bit of confusion for myself, wondering, I feel that I'm paying my municipality for it, but we're talking straight up, and again, housing starts, we're talking right off new development charges.
Yeah, you got it. So when you're building new homes, a new subdivision, what have you, you pay all kinds of development charges. You pay all kinds of fees. You get taxed to death. It's almost like it's cigarette or tobacco or alcohol, right?
Right.
And somehow housing is thrown in that category.
Right.
But when you look at all of the development charges that get piled on before you put your first spade into the soil, in some areas that's up to $150,000. The top charge, development charges to install water and sewer. If you change it to a utility model and paid over a lifetime, like you do a mortgage over 30, 40 years, that can knock down the price of a first-time home by up to $50,000.
And this is the builder that's paying that, or is this the new home buyer that's paying that?
The new home buyer. It gets passed on to the new home buyer to pay for that upfront, even though she might live there for 5 years. It might be 10 years.
Okay.
What have you.
Okay. So as we talk about affordability, there's one of the options is bring down some of that cost right there, and that's going to help with some of the affordability. Okay. Okay. So then land uses changes. One that jumps out at me, and again, I think to myself, just in the area that I reside in and the areas that I travel through, but Highway 7 and the Highway 400. If we can think about the sky rises that have gone up, I mean, growing up and seeing that neighborhood in passing my entire life, it is incredible to see what they've done over there. I know that area to be very much industrial, as long as I can remember it to be industrial. But now we're seeing, again, those high rises. We're seeing, the visual landscape has completely changed. We're seeing townhomes being built in areas that I never thought of as residential. Is this what we mean by implementing land use changes and exclusionary zoning? Is that all in an effort to plan out, provide more land closer to major centers to build on?
Yeah, you painted some really good pictures there, David. And the answer is yes. And there's really two parts. There's exclusionary zoning. I'll do that one first.
Okay.
And then the other opportunity is converting excess commercial space into residential or mixed use. So let me start with the former one. We use this term called exclusionary zoning. I don't know if everybody's heard that term. It's in the Housing Affordability Task Force. The government's made some steps, but they need to go farther. Here's how it works. So picture, you're there in Richmond Hill, you're in Toronto, you're in St. Catharines, a wartime bungalow. It's past the Spec Before date. An owner buys it and she says, well, I got an option today. I can build it into a 4-story monster home for my family.
Yep.
Certainly see that across the province. That's the right. We support that. You work hard for your money. You want to provide for your family. God bless. But if that same person bought the home and said, you know what, I'm going to tear down that old bungalow. I'm going to build a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex. There'll be great homes for first-time buyers or maybe empty nesters. David, you see what happens. Oh, my God, they go through this regulatory ringer. The neighbors start complaining. The lawyers get involved. They go to a committee and adjustment, all that stuff. And before you know it, 2 years have passed. Costs have gone through the roof. And what does she do? She walks away. And who ultimately pays the price? It's those 3 or 4 families that now cannot find an affordable place to buy. So our view at OREA is level the choices. You want to build that 4-story monster home? You've earned it. That's your right. But if you wanted to build that triplex or the 4-plex for first-time buyers, you should have the same right to do so. That'd be probably the biggest step we could make to bring more homes closer to reach in our urban areas.
Okay, so as we talk about the urban areas then, and you know, another recommendation that came up was modernizing the zoning to support commercial to residential conversions and greater density along transit corridors. Again, that same neighborhood comes up to me of Highway 7 and 400 there, where they've built a ton of sky rises. We know that the roads are very narrow, which will naturally limit some ability to park. I would also look at that area from an infrastructure perspective and think, again, as long as I remember the neighborhood, I don't know how people are walking in those neighborhoods to get around to where they have to. You're crossing, you know, massive sort of, you know, 4, 6, 7 lane, you know, streets, big intersections. Does this come down to infrastructure in this particular, when we talk about modernizing zoning to support? Is that the infrastructure part of it where we're talking roads and
Sure, to an extent.
Tell us more about that.
Sure. You've got to have the infrastructure to support communities and schools and healthcare facilities. But here's the harder part. It takes backbone. It takes guts by government to actually stand up the NIMBY forces and say, we actually want to create homes so people can find a place to call their own. They can get out of mom and dad's basement. That entrepreneur coming to Ontario is going to create jobs, can find a place to raise their family. It really comes down, issue number one is the backbone to get it done. And now in this economy where we have a lot of hybrid work environments, where commercial footprints may shift, where you don't do as much in-store shopping, maybe more online, we have unused commercial areas. So, you know, why can't we convert those to residential or mixed use, particularly along transit lines? And the government's doing the right thing. They're investing in transit. You mentioned with the Highway 7 and 400, more highways, subways, and LRTs. You should be allowed to upzone along those major infrastructure routes from 6 to 11 stories without having to go through all kinds of process and 5, 6 years of delay. Those are other key changes in that housing affordability task force that will actually get homes built that people can afford.
Do we need to keep building up? Should we be building out, like further from the major centers? Or are we looking saying that could actually impact people's work? Building up is probably the answer.
You need both, right?
Yeah.
You're going to find people, and David, you know this in your own business and those that you coach, at different times of our lives, we're going to look for different types of housing. And for about 30 years, we built far fewer homes than we had people. And now in 2024, you've got this cruel game of musical chairs where you've got more and more people circling fewer and fewer homes. What do you do about it? You build. You drive the costs down. You cut the red tape. You've got the backbone to stand up against NIMBYs. And that NIMBY, not in my backyard, has gotten so bad now, David, they call it bananas. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. Like it's gone over the top. So you do need to do that. I gave some examples of cities. In smaller towns, you need to open up more land that's not environmentally sensitive for development. The government could do better in doing roads and bridges in smaller communities. You really need to go across the spectrum to enable more housing choices.
You know, I was going to say, how big of a factor is this, you know, municipal NIMBYism? Just from hearing you today in the few minutes that we've been here, it sounds like it really is a big factor where you've always got the, you know, that next municipality saying, no, not us, like not here, not happening.
I do. I've seen enough and I've got some ideas how to fix it. I saw that on my politics side. I see that now as a CEO for the Ontario Real Estate Association. You know, I'll tell you a story. I was meeting with the cabinet minister a couple of months ago. We're talking about some of these ideas, David, you're so kind enough to ask about. How to get more homes built for average families. And he said, you know, he was a municipal councillor. He said, Tim, there's nothing more frustrating when we'd have a development come through, check off every box on the list before a council. And then maybe about 10, 12 people would show up at a council meeting and all of a sudden council votes against it. And he said, we go out for beer after. He said, hey, what's going on? I thought that project was going through and met all the boxes. And his councillors would say, well, you know, Fred from down the street showed up and he lives in my area and he's a good guy. So I couldn't vote for it. Right. That's ridiculous that kind of parochialism, you know, looking at your own backyard and not thinking about the broader good. We need to fix that. Here's a good way to do that. Number one, reward good behavior and punish bad behavior. Our report from OREA, again, you can see it at OREA.com, talks about using carrots and sticks. By way of example, if a municipality starts saying no to the NIMBYs and yes to more homeowners, they should get rewarded. Their arena project goes to the top of the list. They get that new highway, that new bridge. But David, if they keep saying no and turn their back to young people staying in the community, they don't get their project. They don't get that kind of funding, or the province forces it. The crisis has become so deep, you need both carrots and sticks to get the job done.
It's a great way to reference that with the carrot and the stick. It makes it definitely brings some very logical approach to the situation there. And I like the approach. I think it makes sense, right? I think that's, look, we look at that in human nature, incentivizing, not just others, but even ourselves, right? How am I going to reward myself today for the little actions I took? If I continue to reward myself, I'm going to feel better about what I'm doing. I'm going to do more of it. I'm probably going to get more. In the same case here, when we come back to the municipalities, serve the greater purpose, get rewarded by, let's say, again, the arena development, whatever it be. It totally makes a lot of sense. So, when we say red tape, then if we sum that up, Tim, would that be pretty much zoning and infrastructure issues? Is that what it really comes down to?
First, the whole system, I'm going to steal one that I've heard Premier Ford use, is like this carousel that goes around and around in municipalities, where you visit, the planning department, then the rec department, then you visit, the utilities, and then you visit whatever. And then they all have their problems. You fix them up and you make another round. Before you know it, years go by. I'm going to tell you one reason why I'm optimistic, then I'll tell you a story about what needs to be fixed. I'm optimistic because the province is making the right steps, and some municipalities are going in the right direction. And I hope they use these carrots and sticks to get the others going in the right direction too. The province now has assigned, I believe it's the top 36 or so municipalities, David, housing growth targets. So, for your business success, if you don't measure something, you're just practicing.
That's right.
So you're going to hold them accountable and reward those that hit it, and hopefully use the sticks against those that don't until they get moving in the right direction. So I think that's a very important step forward, that we are now counting, just like businesses do each and every day, like realtors do every day, and make sure we hit those goals. Here's an example of what needs to be fixed. When we had the Housing Affordability Task Force, there was a development actually in Toronto, about 22 stories, a number of affordable units in that building. And they found under the shadow laws that, believe it or not, I'm getting this, the solstice, the spring solstice, equinox is summer and winter, right? The spring solstice, there was a shadow that fell in the park that obscured, get this, 6.5% of the park on one day of the year. But because of those shadow guidelines, this red tape, they actually had to knock it down like a dozen stories. Most of the affordable units were squeezed out as a result of that, and you had fewer homes for a 6.5% shadow on a single day of the year. That stuff is nuts. You got to clear house.
Listen, this is not housing, but I'm going to tell you something. We just got a letter from the YRDSB, York Region District School Board, about the fact that our kids are going to be let off school early when the eclipse goes, because they're worried that it's going to be a little too dark at that exact moment, or the kids may look up at the sun. And it just takes me way back to when that happened, when I was in school. And Tim, I can remember the exact school, the exact floor, the exact window that I looked out of with this plastic thing that my father gave me and said, hey, when it happens, look through this and then you'll be able to see it. And I thought, my dad actually encouraged me to look up. And now what we're doing is we're sending an entire school system home out of fear. You don't have to comment on that. All I'm doing is saying you're 6.5% shadow.
That's why people turn in to MindShare to learn all about the solar system and how that all works. But I remember the same thing, right? It was 1970, solar eclipse. I was going to school in Fort Erie. We had the same, when the teachers actually taught us about it. It sticks in my mind. It sticks in yours. It's common sense. We were covered up. We enjoyed the eclipse, and we can still see. I think it'd be a better approach. That's probably neither here nor there, but I agree with you on that one.
That's what I mean. No need for comment, but just moreover, like, this is where things are going. And this is part of where I'm incredibly perplexed about what's happening out there. But here we talk about the need for more skilled workers, more tradespeople. Is immigration the answer, or is incentivizing people who are already reside here, come back to the reward, the incentives, and furthermore, even our youth to get into those types of jobs. Is the lack of labor a main cause of our housing crisis? And maybe that's the bigger question.
The answer is absolutely. It is a major restriction on our ability to build. And I'm happy to talk immigration in a few moments if you like, David.
Yep.
Some strong views on the proper approach there. But yeah, I mean, we hear that from builders all the time. I've been a proponent of this in my time in politics and today. We need more people in the skilled trades. And if you get something fixed around your house these days, or you get an addition, you know, it pays quite well. There are good jobs with benefits and pensions in the skilled trades. I was useless. I had no skill. That's why I could run my mouth. I tried to find a career where I could actually use that as my main tool. I remember making in shop class salt and pepper shakers, and they could not, to save their lives, hold a single grain of salt or pepper when I finished them. My mom, God bless her, still has them in her cupboard to this day, free of salt and pepper. But I admire those that do, that have these skills. They're good paying jobs. We need to do more, making it simpler to go through apprenticeship, working with the colleges, actually tracking some of that back to high school so kids can start even earlier in high school learning those skills. If we really want to get those 1.5 million homes, OREA underlines that part of that report we mentioned earlier on. We need to get more women and men in the trades, and it pays well.
You know what, they certainly do, and you're absolutely right. There's a you know, a lot of folks out there that are doing quite well in those trades. So simply put, then, if we had less red tape when it comes to the construction, do we think we'd have more people working these jobs? Is one slowing down the other?
Absolutely. If we had more people in the trades, we get more homes built faster, and also would be less expensive. Supply and demand, right? You have a limited amount of workers. The costs are going to be higher than if you had more in the economy. There is some red tape that's being reduced. Trying to get through the apprenticeship system can be confusing, especially for young people. They're opening up more positions, I think, doing more through the colleges and training centers. I believe we're on the right track. And the more we can champion the value of the trades, to give them the respect that they deserve in our modern Canadian society, that's going to also be a boost to young people to say, I'm going to take that career path, either if my mom and dad are in some other business, that one's for me.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to it since you opened it up, and I mean, I opened it up, but you're taking it, the immigration part of it. You mentioned that there are some thoughts around that, and I continue to bring it up, and I do think that it has caused a problem. That is a very subjective view on it, for sure. But I do believe that it has caused a problem in terms of housing affordability. I don't know that, you know, I would fully agree, and we don't have to go way down this rabbit hole today, but, you know, on the foreign buyer ban for another 2 years, I don't know that that's the big issue that we've got here. I think we just have way too many people and not enough places for people to live. And that's really the way I look at it. But you opened up the door on the immigration topic. Please share.
Yeah. So the way to approach this in a very balanced way. So let me get into some details here. We do need more immigration. Despite best efforts, David, we're not producing enough kids to replace us when we get into retirement. That's a danger. We won't have as many workers. You'll be able to afford public programming like healthcare, long-term care. So we want to grow our economy and our population. We do need immigration unless we start having a lot more kids. But the challenge, I say, is let's actually make a shift in our immigration program to reward just what you and I were talking about. So if you're coming from Europe, you're coming from Asia, what have you, and you've got skills in the skilled trades, it's awfully hard to get in right now. If you go to university, you speak French or English, you know, you're a professor or lawyer or whatever, you score points on our system, you go to the top of the line. But if you can swing a hammer, you can put up drywall, you can make a building, you can make a house, you don't get any extra points. That's backwards in today's system. So change number one I would make is to give more points in our immigration system to reward those in the skilled trades who are going to build the homes, the highways, and the hospitals that we need. And I imagine that's a federal topic. It is. Now, the province does have an avenue. Each province is assigned a certain number they can sort of pinpoint to recruit to the province each year. I'd expand that stream. But also, you're right, at the federal level, under the point system, because it's hard to get into Canada as an immigrant, reward the skilled trades. Get them near the top of the list instead of being at the bottom. Here's number two. If you set an immigration target, then stick to it. But if you have backdoor immigration, that's going to cause a problem. That's going to mean that we're not getting the homes that are affordable built that we need. So sadly, right now, across Canada, we've got these Mickey Mouse colleges that are really backdoors for immigration. Students don't go there to go to school, David. They don't go there to get a degree or contribute to the economy. They go there to try to skip the line. So when you're looking at immigration policy, reward the skilled trades who are our traditional immigration route is highly competitive. And these Mickey Mouse colleges that are not actually contributing to academic development or our society, you got to close that backdoor to immigration, because that means our numbers have gone from about 500, 600,000 a year to more than 1 million.
Wow. That'd be too much. At these numbers,
exactly.
Way too much.
Yeah. You have a system that's well managed, that's thoughtful, that looks at the economy and what we need. Keep that stream, reward the trades in that stream. But anybody trying to cut the line and sneak in another way, you got to close that door.
Well, and I would agree with that completely. I think that's a door that we're, for some reason, we're leaving ajar. And I do believe that, again, it is posing some issues when it comes to the housing affordability. And listen, that's whether we've just got an influx of the amount of people that need roofs over their heads. There's a lot of folks coming in that come with money, that come with education, that come totally prepared to survive. This is more of a topic of whether, you're originally from here or you're coming in here. We still need to put roofs over heads. We still need to have those roofs over the heads. And I don't know that that's every single, citizen's need is to pay for other people to have a roof over their head. But I do believe the people coming in need to be able to do so. Whether again, you were born here or you moved here, you got to be able to support yourself. And I don't think that that's on the onus of other people. But anyhow, another topic there. So, as we sort of close out this particular topic, the one thing that really, Tim, for me, as I wrap my head around all of this is, the wastewater, it completely makes a ton of sense. And we've seen it in different places and in even different parts of the world where when that is not taken into consideration and they do continue to pass construction, there's a serious sewage problem. We haven't got, the infrastructure to be able to support the amount of people that are there. Then you start looking at the municipalities and say, okay, well, they're going to go in and say, fine, you can put shovels in the ground. But again, now we're lacking maybe the workers. So there is this crazy, what did you say Premier Ford said it about? What was the wording he used there? You just referenced that a moment ago.
The carousel.
The carousel. Pardon me. That was the thought going through my mind when you brought that up. I went, that's really, to me, like, even when we look at this issue here, people say, well, bring the rates down. Well, if bring the rates down, prices are going to go up and people are going to start moving more. There's so many great ideas here. And I think that you guys are taking an amazing stand, and we thank you on behalf of all Canadians and Ontarians for speaking up and supporting, this initiative. It is very important. And again, you guys are doing a fantastic job at that. To me, I look at all of the ideas and I think there's good stuff there. I don't know that there's actually a fix to all of this unless things outright crash. And even then you could say, well, then there's another slew of, problems that come with that.
Look, when you're deep in a hole, the first thing you do is stop digging, right? You put down the shovel, don't make it worse, and then step by step, climb your way out of it. We put on the table ideas that can actually get Ontario on top again, can create that next generation of Canadian homeowners to get a place to call home they can actually afford, and maybe put some money for college, university for the kids. To do that, two things: follow our recommendations, and second, have the courage of your convictions that average hardworking Canadians are behind you. They want to see this done. Only bold moves will build more houses. Well said. Well said. I was going to ask you any final thoughts on the topic of housing affordability, but I think you might have just summed that up. I'll stick with that. I like it. I like it. Let's switch gears here. I want to get into maybe a topic that's a little bit more controversial at the moment in sort of our Ontario real estate landscape. ORWP been a big topic. One message that I have tried hard to take a stand on, and this is something, Tim, that and I'm sure you're aware, but a big part of the message that I try to share across anything that we do is always around the topic of mental health. I believe that the publicity part of the whole thing, not ORWP, but mental health, people seem to look at for a day of the year because of all the promotion going on through the social medias and the mainstream medias. But we know that it is a 365-day-a-year problem for many, many Canadians. To that, my big message out to our industry, because I think we've got some fantastic people in this industry, is that we are all colleagues.
We all know each other. We've all, many of us have liked each other and seen each other and will see each other again at different events. Yet there's a line that's been drawn from some because of differences of opinion. One question that I want to ask today: why did we make it mandatory? And do we feel if it was optional that we would have had a different outlook from our membership about the program?
So the only way to actually bring a safety net that is affordable, but is there for realtors at their time of need, was to make sure it was paid through dues. So everybody pays their dues as part of the association to get that program. I can tell you why in a little bit, but let me just take this back to big picture. Mm-hmm. You mentioned mental health. David, there are so many realtors out there today who are working with no safety net whatsoever. It was eye-opening. We surveyed our members and we found that there were 60% that did not have any kind of healthcare benefits whatsoever. A significant number also had no kind of life insurance. And all of us know at some point in our life, fate throws us a curveball. So OREA and the real estate boards got together. We said, let's create a safety net to be there. And you can top it up if you want to. You get your own coverage on top of that, great. But to be there for those members who really need the help. And we're talking to a single mom with 3 kids, tears in her eyes, saying, Tim, please tell Tanya Artenosi, the board of directors, we are so happy, my family, that now we've got a plan we can depend upon. My son needs drug coverage. I'm taking chances every day. A lot of challenges to my mental health with the ups and downs of the market. This is going to give us a safety net to be there when times get tough, and I can focus more on my business development, helping my clients, and building a more prosperous future for our family. You asked me the question about making it all in or optional. Here's how it works with insurance companies. They need to know that there is a broad array of people on a program of all ages, male, female, smokers, non-smokers. They like a broad population like that is representative. Realtors happen to be that way. If you say to a program you can opt out, well, who opts out? Well, it's usually the younger ones, the healthier ones. And when that happens, that means fewer people in, prices go up, and services decline. And then there's another wave that comes in and says, oh, well, it's more expensive and I don't get this coverage, so I drop out. And programs like that get into what they call in the insurance sector a death spiral. They shrink because they get higher costs and fewer benefits. The only way to get this kind of safety net where everybody's in, you don't have to take invasive tests, pre-existing conditions, have access to the programs. The only way was to make sure it was paid for by dues equally by all members across Ontario. And the good news is we've got about 90,000 now signed up, 15,000 claims made, people seeing doctors on Maple as part of that program in 8 minutes or less. And for mental health, that's part of the Maple delivery to be there throughout the week, throughout the day, for realtors who want that kind of assistance and couldn't get it before.
Thank you for sharing on that. I know it's there's a lot more we can dive into on that topic. Really, I wanted to just get to that one question there around mandatory, because I think that in conversations with folks out there, I've heard both sides of the equation. I really have. And there's been arguments on both sides. And you know what, to anything in life, whatever you bring up, there will always be a difference of opinion. Ask 10 people, you get 10 different answers. I think it was the mandatory that is what got a lot of people. And there's certainly some validity to why it has become mandatory. That said, I think that's probably where, feathers were ruffled along the way. But again, there's been some stories that I've heard as we talk about a mother with 3 children or a mother or a parent that has, a child that's going through something that needs the assistance from the medical and maybe the actual medication itself, being able to actually do it rather than not be able to do it. And one thought that I've always had along the way is, well, but if I'm not suffering from it, why should I be paying for it? But the flip side becomes, well, if I can help somebody who is, why would I not want to help?
Yeah, you want that realtor across from you in a transaction or your colleague at work, right, to be on their game, focused on business and not worried about, not having a healthcare coverage for their kids when they're sitting across the table. And look, if you don't want to take it, you don't have to. You're paying for it through your dues. So nobody's going to take David Greenspan and drag you down to the chiropractor. Nobody's going to make you line up at Shoppers to get your drug coverage. But it is there at a much more affordable rate that you can get on your own when you do need that service.
Let's switch gears again. I'm going to go to TRESA, because I think TRESA is look, it's there. It's been implemented. I think that there's obviously a learning curve that people are having with it. It is up and running. Anything that we want to share about it today, current state, need to knows, updates, just to take a moment to speak to it.
Sure, a lot there. Well, look, our goal at OREA, big part of that, helping create that next generation of Canadian homeowners so realtors have more success in the marketplace. And then number two, making sure that that realtor at your side during the biggest financial transaction you're ever going to make has the highest professional standards, a modern code of conduct, a tough disciplinary body when people break the rules to get them out of the profession, highest levels of training, and also a health and wellness program to back them up. We wanted to give that kind of support so be North American leaders when it comes to support for the professional realtor. And David, with TRESA and the ORWP, we got that. You cannot find another provincial or state association that has anywhere near that level of support, consumer protection, high levels of professionalism, and that kind of benefits package. So what does this mean at the end of the day? Well, it gives new business opportunities for realtors, personal real estate corporations. We're part of that. It makes the process a higher level of transparency for consumer protection, higher professional standards, more power for RICO to go after bad actors, to suspend or revoke their licenses, tougher fines, no more slaps on the wrist, and also more options for consumers like an open offer process. So there's TRESA and ORWP in a nutshell as how we protect and support our members. And on OREA.com, we have extraordinary guidance there to help navigate these new rules, the biggest change in real estate rules since, well, early 2000s.
I was just going to say, if people needed some more support, OREA.com.
Yeah, OREA.com. So go to our TRESA website. We got a great tool there, which I think is perfect for this. It's called TRESA in 2, a series of 2-minute or less videos that walk you through in eye-level, plain language, not legal talk about what it means for you. We have a realtor in residence, actually a former president of the Ontario Real Estate Association and our chair of the TRESA Task Force, Ray Ferris. He's a realtor in residence, a successful real-life realtor and broker who will answer your questions to the realtor in residence. He's been hitting those, I think 90-some% in 24 hours or less. And we'll also come to your brokerage, your team, your real estate board, and we'll do our presentation as well as take questions. This is an unprecedented level of support from OREA to help our members interpret what this means to their basic day-to-day business and how we've got the highest bar now in North America.
Mr. Ferris was on the show not too long ago. I'm a big fan. I've known him for many, many years. One thing you may not have known, him and I share a birthday. He's amazing. And I those videos online as well. I went and watched those, I guess, months ago at this point now. Very, very easy to understand. So for anybody that does have questions, I want to back that up and say, OREA.com, go over there and watch the series TRESA in 2. There's a lot of great videos over there.
Oh, there you go.
So let's talk about some
happy belated birthday. That was just mid-January.
That's right. Yes, thank you, sir.
18th,
you got
something
that.
Like that. I'll give it a shot.
What's that?
January 18th.
17. We were there.
Man.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
So, hey, let's get to some fun stuff now. We've got the biggest real estate event in the country coming up in a few weeks. Like, Tim, we're a few weeks away here. Reality 24 is going to be taking place in Ottawa, March 6th and 7th. Tim, why should people join us there?
This is the best stage anywhere in Canada to get a front row ringside seat of where real estate is going. How can you get a new perspective on the market and doing better business? No better place than the Reality Conference there in Ottawa, March 6th to 7th. Realityconference.ca, you can see all the speakers. But we've got a coaches panel, some of the leading coaches in North America. David Greenspan, of course, part of that. You're helping to run the event and hold all the pieces together. New technologies, 30-plus different exhibitors in a trade show. And the secret of success, long-term real estate referrals. You're going to meet other top realtors from across Ontario and across Canada in our awesome networking opportunities.
It is going to be amazing. And seriously, I know this is the Ontario Real Estate Association's conference, but everybody needs to understand there are people traveling from coast to coast in Canada coming out to this conference in Ottawa. There are people coming from the States. I know there's people coming from afar overseas that are coming to this event. This is big. This is really big. Now, I asked you this yesterday, and you know, this is a big one for us. Is what is our big goal for the event? And I'm talking when we say, you know, for everybody coming. You know, you're going to spend a few days. You're going to be networking. We're going to be exhibitors, the speakers. I mean, the learning is, you know, the evening events. I mean, this is going to be a loaded, power-packed few days that we're in Ottawa. What is the big goal for everybody walking away when they're going home to wherever they go back to at the end of this event? What is that goal?
Well, it's how you're going to build your business for future success. You're going to have some of the top real estate professionals on the stage. We're going to have the CEOs from our major brands as well, from Remax and Exit and Royal LePage and Bosley, talking about, you know, their advice on where the market is going and how you can benefit from that. Top real estate coaches, Jess Lundeville, Kathleen Black, Matthew Ferreira coming out from the States. The Buffini team is going to be on the stage, right? You can pick what's the real estate, you know, coach that is going to be best for me. New technologies on the stage, and also perspective from mortgage brokers and economists on what's going to be happening in the housing market. If you want to find a stage where you can learn from leaders, so the best and the brightest is going to build your business, and then hang out and have a glass of beer or wine and network right after, Reality Conference, March 6th and 7th in Ottawa, and all the details, realityconference.ca. And I'm not even talked about our exciting keynote speakers yet either.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. I was going to say, as we say the word exciting, I was going to say, what are you looking forward to most, Mr. Hudak? What's got you really excited?
I love the networking, right? There's just so much energy that takes place at the Reality Conference. As you said, seeing people from across North America, they're like, I just love the vibe of the whole thing. I will tell you, though, I am also a basketball fan. So one of our keynote speakers is NBA Hall of Fame legend, now turned successful business leader, investor, and real estate investor, Magic Johnson. He is a magnetic speaker, great interaction with the audience, and you can learn from Magic about his types of investments and how you can benefit from that in your real estate business.
He's going to make it definitely a magical event, isn't
he? Yeah. And then you and I will take him on 2-on-1 and see how many hoops.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't know, man. Maybe you guys, you know, I'll have to be the one because I don't know if Magic can hold the ball. You know, no, I'm joking. What about, we've got one other major keynote speaker. And I saw this gentleman, I was sharing this with you. I saw this gentleman speak when I shared a stage with him in Atlanta. And this had to be one of the most, I'm trying to find the right word for this. Like, it drew you right in. It kept you there. I was bobbing my head, enjoying the presentation, all while learning the entire time. Soft-spoken, fantastic message, a great presenter. Fubu's Damon John from the Shark Tank. He's also going to be there with us.
Yeah, you want to learn from an entrepreneur, right? About how to invent yourself, how to market, how to grow your business. Damon John is a classic story. So came from a lower income family in New York City when the hip hop movement was exploding, and built the Fubu clothing brand, and has become a tremendously successful businessman since then. He also stars on Shark Tank, right? The American version of our Dragon's Den. So if you want to learn from somebody who has made himself, one of the Americans' top entrepreneurs, and to get advice in a very energizing presentation, you'll see Damon John as well as Magic Johnson at the Reality Conference too.
So we open up on the morning of the 6th. We've got some great keynote speaking sessions coming up right off the hop. We've got Magic there with us on the 6th. We've got some great panels coming up for the evening. There's some wonderful events coming up as well. We've got an open house. We've got YPN Boost. There's going to be some fantastic networking going on in the evenings.
Oh, absolutely. You got to have that, right? Because you're going to be learning by day and then making new friends, acquaintances, and building your referral network at night from leaders right across Ontario and from across Canada. We've got a big boost event. That's our young professional network, throwing a party that night. Our new president, incoming president, Rick Hedzier, has an event that you can go to as well. Remax is throwing a bash. Chris Alexander is going to guest DJ, by the way.
I heard. Who knew he was a DJ?
I'm curious what's going to be on his set list. So hard work during the day and learning, and a lot of fun at night, and great networks to help build your success.
And then we're right back at it the next day. And Mr. Damon John will be joining us. We've got, again, more speakers, more panels coming. It is set to be just a fantastic event. Is it anything else that we want to share about the event today?
Well, just make sure you buy your tickets so you can get in the door. So realityconference.ca, and you can see that whole list of speakers and many more. And, I think each panel is going to give you a new perspective on the world of real estate and your future success.
Well, I can say to everybody, we have been working very, very hard behind the scenes. Your team is absolutely fantastic, Tim. Everybody there, just amazing people. They are working very, very hard to put this event together. I am excited. I've been able to peek behind the curtains and see what's going on, and I am super pumped. So I want to reinforce that to everybody listening right now. Realityconference.ca. Be sure to get over there, get your tickets, join us in Ottawa, book your hotel. Get ready for a power-packed 2 days in Ottawa together. Once again, put on, by OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association. So I can't wait, man. Like, are we there yet?
I know it sneaks up. I remember planning this event out a year ago, and it's just a few weeks away. And David, I really appreciate the role, you're playing here too. You're going to be on the stages on both days, introducing the audience into what to expect and how ideas connect. You've been at our events in the past. You always do a fantastic job, and really appreciate you making the time to star on the reality stage as well.
Yeah, it's an honor to be there, and I thank you all for the confidence in having me there.
Absolutely.
So the day is over. It's the end of the day, Mr. Hudak. You have done what you could to change the world in your days, and you've been doing a fantastic job for many years at that. How do you know it's been a successful day for you once you wrap up your day?
Man, that's an interesting question, eh? So every morning, I'm up pretty early, and I make myself a bit of a list. So here's one. Hopefully nobody screenshot that to see what I had on January 24th. And then I do a little line through it. Did I get that done? Did I get that done? And what I didn't get done, I try to do the next day. So that's kind of really mathematical answer. But I think, really, at the end of the day, one of my habits is I have a little snifter of bourbon. That's my secret poison. Catch up with my wife, Debbie, and I think back, did I actually advance our goals today? Did we help bring the keys closer to hand for the hardworking Ontarians that we have in our mind right now that, worked hard, they got their degree, their diploma, they got a decent job, right? They're saving every penny. Did we actually help them get closer to those keys? And secondly, did we help continue to raise the bar when it comes to professionalism and consumer protection and tools for our realtors? And to tell you, pretty well every night, I go to bed sleeping easy that we're on the right path.
Well, the sign of a true leader, as the word help came up numerous times in that sentence right there. And we thank you for that. We thank you for all the efforts that you continue to put in and continue to, lead this industry and, lead beyond even the industry. You've been doing that a long time. And you're certainly right there at the forefront doing some fantastic stuff. So we thank you for that. Any final words just before we take off for today? It's been an absolute pleasure having you back on the show and all the insights you've shared. Any final words to share with people just before we sign off?
Listen, David, I appreciate your leadership, your dedication to the profession, and the women and men who make it great. You command tremendous respect, a great audience. So I'm honored to be on MindShare again. And I want to thank you on behalf of the audience for the outstanding product you continue to put out for Ontario and Canadian realtors. And number two, I'm feeling good about the year ahead. We've talked some of the challenges. We've talked that there's solutions on the table. Certainly when mortgage rates, went up rapidly in 2023, it was a more challenging year. But I'm just sensing now that we've stabilized. We've got a good plan on the table, good tools to support our members, more buyers coming to the marketplace. I'm feeling good about 2024, and you can't go wrong with a year that ends in 2-4.
Well, I will double down on that. And I'm looking forward to enjoying at least one of those 2-4s with you when I see you in a few weeks. Tim, I thank you very, very much for joining us once again on the MindShare podcast.
My pleasure. And we'll see you on March 6 and 7.
You bet, sir. Take care. You are either listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms, or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, be sure to download your free copy of our MindShare 101 goal setting worksheet to help you conquer 2024 and become the best version of you that you really want to be. A reminder as well, if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching and in-person keynote talk for your upcoming event and or ongoing virtual training, just get in touch with my team. We'll set up a consultation call, learn more about what you're looking to achieve and how we will help you do just that. For all inquiries, just get in touch with us today. Of course, don't forget to leave a review of this podcast at www.ratethispodcast.com/MindShare101. For you iTunes folks, it'll take you over there. For Spotify people, it'll take you over there. Very easy to use. Again, ratethispodcast.com/MindShare101. Connect with me on Facebook at MindShare101, on TikTok at MindShare101, and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to thank Kids Keep in Touch Systems, REM Magazine, and OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, for sponsoring the MindShare podcast. Be sure to visit realityconference.ca to get your tickets for Reality 2024, and we will see you in Ottawa. This has been another episode of the MindShare podcast. Thank you for tuning in.